SolarSystem lights is the controller. The controller basically sends the commands to the lights and allows you to control the spectrum at any given point in time. When you first turn on the controller, you'll notice on the screen that there are 4 different lines of information. The first one on top is the time. It says now in parentheses, so that's the current time in military format, 13:35. Right now it's 1:35 p.m. The second line is the current setting of the various channels on your solar system lights. So R stands for red, W is white, B is blue. So in this case, red channel is 0, white is 0, B is 0. That means all the lights basically are in the off position. The third line shows next. This is what's going to happen at the next event. And the next event will basically set your lights to full blast. In this case, red is 99, W is 99, and blue is 99. The first thing I want to show you is how you go into manual mode. You see the button at the bottom. This is a touch screen, by the way, so anywhere you touch on the screen, a certain function will be in effect. So if you go into manual mode, you'll notice 3 lines. Each line controls a channel. The red one is on top, the white one is in the middle, and the blue is at the bottom. If you touch the on button, then basically the on goes to 99, and that turns on the red channel on the lights. If you turn on the whites, again it goes to 99. If you turn it on, turn on the blue, blue goes to 99. So this is basically full blast. All the lights are on at 100% power. You can turn them off, 1 channel at a time. And every time you take an action, you'll see the numbers change in the middle. You'll notice there are 2 plus signs on the left side and 2 minus signs on the right side. The large plus sign will increase the numbers by an increment of 10. So for example, if we want to set the red channel to 10, we hit the plus button once, and it'll go to 10, hitting it again, we'll go to 20, etc. And you do the same thing. And on the minus, it'll decrement by 10. You can also increase them by 1. By hitting the small plus sign, and decrementing by 1 by hitting the small minus sign. That's basically the manual mode. If you want to set the lights into view mode sets the white channel to 100% or 99 and turns off everything else. And then when you come back from view mode, it'll go back to the previous setting. This is important for cases where you want to see what your plants look like under natural light. So for example, if you have all your lights on full blast, at 100% power, the plants under this kind of light setting may not look very natural. So if you put it in view mode, you can actually see what the plants look like in natural white light. And then you can come back from view mode, it'll go back to the previous setting, which in this case was full blast. Okay, so let's go back actually and let's turn everything off for a minute. And let's talk about how the programming works on this controller. If you go into setup mode, you'll notice 4 different buttons from top to bottom, and then there's a back button here which takes you back to that run mode. The first one on top is the program editing. This allows you to basically set events at various times during the day for the lights to do a certain thing, go to a certain setting. You'll notice the second one is the set fade duration. The fade duration is basically the amount of time that it will take for the lights to transition from one setting to the next. We'll go over that in a minute. The third button is set the time. This allows you to basically set the time of day and save it. And all these menus will have a similar format. You'll see a large plus sign, a small plus sign, and a large minus sign and a small minus sign. So for example, if I want to change the time from 13:38 to, let's say, 13:40, I'll click on the minutes, and I'll increase this to 40, and I'll say save, and now the time is set to 13:40. Let's go back and fix that time again. And if I were to put the plus sign, obviously it'll go 50, and so on. So let's go back to 13:38. That's our time. And then if you want to erase all the programs, the last button will erase everything, so you can start from scratch. Okay, so we're going to go back to setup mode, and we are going to edit the program. So at 13:45, we transition to full blast. Right now the lights are off. And then we'll have the fade time set to 1 minute. So basically at 13:46, it will be finished transitioning from 0 to full blast. So let's set this to 1345. Okay, if you touch anything outside of this box, you'll see that the highlight goes away, which means it accepted the number. Okay, so 1345, it's going to go to a full blast, and then let's go to the next setting at 1346. It's going to go back to 0. One thing you'll notice is if you change one step, the following step will automatically go to the transition time of the first step plus the fade duration. And the reason for that is because you don't want to go back in time. So each step has to basically be chronologically from step 1 to step 2 increasing. That way everything makes sense when you program the system. You'll also notice that there's an active button. The active button basically says that this step is active. If you want to deactivate it at some point, you can click it and it'll say inactive. It'll turn red. Okay, so then let's go back. So step 1 right now says 1345. At 1345, we're going to transition to full blast. And at 1346, we're going to transition back to 0. And if we save this, we'll go back to the main program. You'll notice right now we're at 1344. And at 1345, it's going to transition to full blast. So let's watch this in action. You'll see the time basically approaching the transition time. And the system should come back on, start coming on at the transition time. One thing you need to know is that the transition happens in 10 equal steps. So for example, right now we have the transition happening from 0 to full blast, and the fade duration is set to 1 minute. So every 6 seconds or so, you'll see that the numbers are going to jump by about 10% of the full transition setting that you have. So we're going from 0 to 100 in 10 steps. So basically every 6 seconds, it is changing the settings by about 10. So it just went to 50. We're midway through. It's about 30 seconds into the transition. Now we're back up to 59. So after the full minute is complete, the lights should be on at full blast. The transition will always happen in 10 steps. So if you were to set the transition time to, say, 10 minutes, then you'll see the settings change every minute or so to go from 0 to full blast. And that's done intentionally to keep this gradual. And also, it gives you a visual cue that this is happening. Okay, you notice what happened now is, so we went to full blast, and then because the second setting was going back down to 0, you notice that we went to full blast, which was 99, 99, 99, and now we're going back down, and the transition time is also 1 minute. So we're going to go back down to 0, turn the lights off basically, in a minute. So at 1347, the numbers should read, RWB000. So with this simple program, you kind of get an idea of what you can do with our lights. Every channel can obviously be set to any setting that you like. In the mornings, you can start by having the blue channel be a higher setting, and then at noon you can have the red channel basically be at full blast, and then go from there. Okay, so as you noticed, as we approached 1347, which took a minute to transition from 1346, we went back to 0, and now it's showing you the next setting, which will happen obviously in 24 hours. Right now we only have 2 settings, so it's showing you that it's going to go back on at 1345 the next day. But obviously this is not what will happen, and normally you will have other settings that will take your lights to the settings that you like during that transition time.